if you have an athlete that's stuck mentally, what are some things that they can do to help, what coaches can do to help out on deck?
Yeah, so anytime I think about peak performance from a mental perspective, we're wanting to like capture this style of attention that's really present based and also really focused on the task. Sometimes when we see like mental struggles or a mental block, athletes' attention will get pulled to the future. So we might start worrying about what's my time going to be, or am I going to be able to take it out fast enough? Like we kind of get a little bit out of the present moment. And so the best thing coaches can do is kind of try to like regulate or orient that attention back to the present and on the task. So I think two really simple ways to do that would be the most simple is probably just having them focus on their breathing. So taking like a couple nice deep breaths in, deep breaths out. What that does is it puts our attention on like a present-based cue, which is our breath. It's always there. And then we also get this really nice impact of kind of relaxation or like managing that adrenaline. The second thing that is really helpful, and I think coaches do this inherently because of who they are, but having the athlete kind of focus on, okay, well, maybe we want to race or swim this time, but how do you want to structure your race? Like, how do you actually want that to go? How do you want to show up? What kind of splitting do you want to do? Do you really want to focus on your turns? Is there a particular aspect of your technique that you're really locked in on? Because what that does is it orients their attention to something they can control, right? Like, as much as we want to think we can control our times or how we, our place, or, if we get a certain cut or whatever we're going for, we really can't. And so we want to think about like, all right, if I really want to just focus on my underwaters or really like explode off the turns, like those process pieces are so helpful and really pull us into the task, make people feel more confident, more in control.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we want to see from a mental perspective.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, in a similar sense of focusing on a task at hand. Last night, I'm on deck coaching. One of
Mm,
my kids comes out and goes, Coach Abby, I can't do it. I feel like I'm gonna die. And he says it just like that.
mm,
As a two
mm,
flyer, we were doing some butterfly, so I'm sure you understand that. What is something
for
that
sure.
it's not quite a stuck mentally, but a lack of confidence that you do you have any tips for like helping those kids be like, no, like you can do it. And these are 9 and 10 year olds, so it's not like high,
Yeah.
like can see the full picture kind of kids.
I think in those moments, like generating a stance of curiosity, right? Like, okay, you're telling me this is like overwhelming to you, or you're gonna die, or this seems way beyond what you're capable of. Like, why not be curious here? Like, let's see how much you can do. Let's see how it goes. Like, let's see what you're capable of. Because I think, our swimmers tend to be really high achieving. A lot of them tend to be very perfectionistic. And so sometimes they only want to do something that they know for sure they can do, that they've done before, that they're capable of. And so I think sometimes kind of framing it like, hey, maybe this feels impossible to you, but why not see how it goes? And I think honestly, that's what, when I was swimming, one of my coaches did that to me. It was like the first time I'd ever raced the mile. I was quite young. And I'm like, there's no way I can swim the mile. Like, that's way too long. And he says, like, why not just see what happens? And ended up being good. And what that does is it just takes a little bit of pressure off of it. I'm not saying that you have to complete it, but let's see how much you can do. And I think shifting into that curiosity standpoint, what we know from some of our like neurological research, it actually enhances dopamine. And so we get like a little bit more excited, a little bit more motivated to pursue that task. And that could be super helpful as well. So that would be my advice there.
That's very cool. So on that note, so I'm a 10 under coach mostly. They
Cool.
get very, very anxious about meets sometimes. And we've tried telling them, okay, you want to shift. Like, you're not just nervous, you're excited because it's similar, like, emotional responses in your body. Do you find that that is scientifically correct? I don't think is the way I want to phrase that, but if you understand, if you get what I mean.
No, absolutely reframing that adrenaline because excitement and anxiety in our bodies feel very similar. It's just the way we're framing it in our mind that makes the difference. And so when we feel those butterflies, when we feel that like chest tightness, if we can train our brain to frame that as oh hey, I'm really excited, or hey, this is the cue that gets me into my meat headspace, or I think there's a famous quote from Steph Curry, like when butterflies show up, that's how I know I'm ready. Like it's kind of his cue
Like,
that this is now game time. And so I think that's a beautiful practice. And especially at, you said what, under 10, especially at a young age, training them to have that relationship with that physical experience is so beneficial. Honestly, what I see clinically from athletes is a lot of the times people don't want to feel that anxiety, right? They have this belief that, like, I shouldn't feel nervous to compete, or if I have anxiety or nerves, then that's an indication that it's not going to be a good meet or it's not going to be a good race. That is so untrue. I think we've seen so many famous athletes come out and say, like, I am nervous before every single competition, before every game. I work mostly in football, and like there are guys throwing up on the sideline before a game, and like that's their cue that they're ready, right? But like
Yeah.
clinically, for someone to throw up like from anxiety, you have to be at such a level of adrenaline and anxiety to do that. So that I think we have to take a really like acceptance-based approach there that, hey, this is going to happen. I'm going to feel this physical feeling, these physical sensations, and it's way more about how I respond to it versus trying to control that experience in and of itself.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna transition. So these high level competitions, similar to championship season, I'm imagining the NFL player or players going to the combine probably feel similar experiences to that. If
Absolutely.
athletes that often have like mental blocks or are like feeling super under pressure, which is something we see a lot like at this time of year, what what should coaches understand about how to help their athletes
Mm.
perform to the best of their abilities? Like, is there if there
Mm.
was a
Like during those.
yeah, like if there was a single message you could give to a coach and be like, "Hey, this is happening, but this is how you can help." Like, what would it be?
I mean, honestly, like I know this is such a simple answer, but I would say like lean on your relationship with your athlete. So as coaches, you guys invest a lot of time in those athletes and the players and whoever you're coaching, and you get to know them. And so there's not really a one size fits all for supporting someone through those times, but I would say if you know your athletes and you've invested in them, like check in with them, just talk to them about it. Everyone's going to be a little bit of a different approach and need something different, but hopefully those are conversations that you've had with those athletes on the front end. Like, hey, how can I best support you during these times? Or what do you need from me during a big meet? Or how often do you want to be checking in? What's helpful for me to say to you? And even just having some of those conversations proactively, it at least gets the athletes thinking about, hey, like what do I need? What might I need from you? And it's a really helpful conversation. So that's what I would say. Just lean on your relationships because you spend, I mean, gosh, we spend more time with our coaches than our
Yeah.
family sometimes. So
Definitely.
that would be my, I know that's not necessarily like one strategy, but that would probably be the stance I would take on that.
No, I think that's a great strategy because like how is a kid supposed to trust what you do and like trust your process if they don't know you? And like that relationship is so
Absolutely.
powerful. That's awesome.
Absolutely. From one of the, I think there was some stat that came out that it was like 90% of student athletes, I think at the college level, said that their coach was a significantly important social support in their life. And so to me, like I take that as, man, like the role of a coach is so powerful. They are so uniquely supported to support athletes, to check in on them, to promote mental health, to promote mental well-being. Just because of, there's so much time spent with them, there's so much respect from the athlete to the coach, and athletes are inherently coachable, right? So if a coach is telling them to think about something or do something to manage their stress, like athletes are typically going to listen to them more than they might a parent or a therapist or someone else in their life.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's like you see so many college athletes leaving their schools if their coach leaves. So I think that's just it's such an interesting like I went to IU and so all the players that
Yeah,
came with Signetti when he moved to IU is like such an interesting like phenomenon to see happen. Like that bond that builds. You want to
absolutely.
just keep going with it.
Absolutely. You get used to that person. And then from a swimming perspective, the training, right? Like I trust your training plan for me. And so there's that whole level as well beyond just the personal relationship.
Yeah. So when you have such a good relationship, sometimes like if at least for me at least I know my athletes can do something. I'm like I know you can do this, but during championship season they're just like what is kind of a mindset shift that you wish more coaches would adopt during that championship season to help them instead of being like well I like I'm guilty of it. I'm like I know you can do this, just like you can do this, let's do it, let's go. And it's probably not the best approach all the time.
Hey, I think affirmations and hyping someone up is incredible. So I'm not against that at all. I definitely do that in my work with clients as well. But I think, and this is, again, this is something that coaches do naturally. So, like, I'm more so just giving a framework to it. But I think one helpful perspective shift, especially for swimmers, knowing them because I was one, is to really lean or take stance in a mastery approach versus an achievement approach. And so what that means is if I'm achievement oriented, I'm trying to like get a certain time. I'm trying to get to a certain level. I'm trying to, qualify for a particular meet. It's kind of based on like this is my goal and this is what I want to pursue. A mastery focus is really like, hey, I want to become the best possible swimmer, athlete, person I can become. I want to like max out my skills, max out everything I can do, and then know that if I do that, those achievements are going to come along the way.
Mhm.
And so think about mastery as like we're kind of focusing on the ingredients that lead to success versus the success itself. And so what that does is when I'm in that mastery focus, like mistakes aren't threats. Mistakes aren't like threatening this outcome that I'm trying to pursue. Mistakes are just information that are helping me understand, hey, that didn't work. Let me pivot and do something different, or let me pace a race a different way, or take a different strategy, or, whatever that might look like in swimming. Also, under a mastery perspective, like moments of adversity, if I go out and I have like a really bad race to start the meet, that's not a reason to panic, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not like I'm not panicking because it's getting in the way of the outcome. I'm being curious. I'm trying to shift. I'm trying to adapt. I'm trying to figure out what's going on because that's making me better as an athlete. It's helping me grow. I'm learning myself. And then I think the biggest thing when it comes to these high level meets and these high pressure moments, when we're in that mastery focus, I seek and chase challenges because they are opportunities for me to test my skills. So if my goal really is to become the best possible swimmer I want to be, I want to see how I'm doing in that process, right? Like I want to see how much I've developed my skills. And so I want those high pressure moments. I want those challenges because I want to see how I show up in them. Again, if I'm in that achievement perspective of like I have to swim this particular time, that's where all my anxiety comes. Like it's not as fun. And so
Yeah.
I think the more coaches can reinforce that mastery focus and hey, like yeah, you might want these times, but I want you to be the best possible swimmer ever. And what's going to help us do that? And what are you going to focus on? Some of that type of language and stance I think can be so helpful and it takes the anxiety away from like I have to do this or I need to be this level of success.
Yeah. So if I'm simplifying this kind of crudely,
Mhm.
mastery focus is more of I want to see myself drop time. I don't care how much, I don't care what it drops to, but I want to see drop time and improvement. Where achievement is I need this cut now.
And I would even take it even one step further. I would say a mastery focus is I want to have the best technique I possibly can. I want my pacing to be on point. I want to make sure that I'm like approaching my races in the right way, that my process is right, that my training is correct. Like I'm trying to fit all the things that make me drop time, that make me achieve cuts, that make me qualify for meets. Everything that leads me to that, I'm maxing out and I'm trying to do all of those the best I can. And that's my focus. I'm goal driven, like I'm outcome driven, but I'm process focused. Like I'm obsessed with the process and the pieces that lead me there.
Yeah, that's cool. So if you have an athlete that is more achievement focused and is like I had a kid that would cry every time they didn't get a cut, how do you help these athletes shift from being achievement focused to more mastery focused?
I think it's all about how we respond to like mistakes, right? Or failure. And so in those moments, I think that's where, again, that relationship with the coach is so crucial. Sit down with the kid and talk about, hey, like what didn't go well in that race? Like, yeah, that was not like, I think you got to be honest, right? Because our swimmers are smart. You got to be honest with them and say, hey, that was not up to the level that I know you're capable of. What did you think happened? What could we do differently next time? How was your body feeling during that race? Is there anything you would do differently? And we try to learn from it because again, under that mastery focus, like that's helping me get better. And in a way, like I want to make mistakes. I want to fail so that I can triage that and prevent that in the future. And so maybe it was like the taper was a little bit off, or maybe, I didn't have enough of this type of training, or maybe my mental was a little bit shaky and I need to add in some meditation or breath work prior to a meet. Like whatever that is, we're just helping people develop those skills and just learn. It's that self-awareness piece. Like I'm learning what I need to be my best athlete.
Yeah. Is there a place where you see in like high achievement or high performing athletes that both can coexist, or is it you really see that it's mostly mastery or mostly achievement focused?
I think an achievement focus will always be there,
Yeah.
right? Which is why we pull so hard to continue to think about it from a mastery perspective. If there was an athlete that I was working, well, they probably wouldn't be working with me, honestly, because they wouldn't need to if they were completely mastery focused. I mean, our athletes are high achievers, right? So the reason people are in their sport is because they want to be the best and they want to win. And so what we're trying to do with that is just always balance it. Like I think we want people to be we want our athletes to be less afraid of mistakes. We want our athletes to be less afraid of failure. We want them to understand that these things are a part of your process to becoming the best athlete you can be over the course of your entire career. Like, I don't need you to be perfect this season or this meet. I need you to have the most successful career and become the best athlete you can be over the course of time. What's going to help you do that? And the way we do that is we build resilience through failure. We understand how to learn from our mistakes. We like all the cliche things, right? Like those are very true. And so we will never get rid of achievement focus. Absolutely not. But we want to at least balance it out with a little bit of mastery
Yeah.
because it makes us less afraid. It makes us less afraid of failure and mistakes. And that's when I think about sports, like those are the big things that come up when we're talking about like anxiety or competition anxiety.
So a lot of our coaches are very small staff, and so it's like your head coach is at every single practice working with all the kids. We're talking about these mastery conversations, helping them try to shift this thought process. How do you taper your questions or edit them a bit so that they work the same for like an 8 and under versus like a 15 and up? Like, do you have any suggestions for how those questions should flow and fluctuate between the age groups?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm gonna totally be honest that I don't work with people under the age of 13, so I may not be the most qualified to answer this. You probably would be as well. But I think it's like, yeah, meeting the athlete where they're at. So if an 8-year-old may not be able to speak on what helps them race well or what helps them feel prepared in the same way that a 15 or 16-year-old could. But maybe, maybe with the young kids, it's more about like when they have a successful race, you ask them like, "Hey, what made you feel really good today?" Or like, "What helped you feel confident today?" And kind of helping them tie, "Hey, this part of my process or this part of my preparation really helped me find success." And then I think with an older athlete, that's when you can kind of capitalize on the challenging times. So when a race didn't go well, "Hey, what do you think happened there? What would you have wanted to do different? How do you want to feel differently going into that race? What do you feel like didn't work for you?" And that would probably be maybe with the young kiddos, like we focus more on those successful moments and tying the like pieces of their process and helping them make those connections. And then the older kiddos, we kind of get more into the weeds of things when they're not working. That would be my go-to. Because again, I think with young athletes, you would be able to speak to this better. Like if they have a tough race, like I almost want to be like, I just don't want to give that much attention to it. Like it is what it is, right? Like we're young, we're learning, it's a part of it. We don't want to like make it that big of a deal. And so I think, yeah, that might not be accurate, but that would be my go-to,
No,
my go-to, my
I would
go-to.
agree with that. Like we just try to be like, okay, well, they're like, I had one kid that was like, I just that was not good. And I was like, okay, but what was one thing that was good? Was your start good? Was your underwater good? Like what was one thing that was really good? And then sometimes I have the kids that go, that was a terrible race. And I go, huh, that's crazy because I thought that this time was faster than this time, but if you have this new math that means that this time's slower and you didn't get your cut, then okay. And they just light up and it's my favorite things.
Oh,
When they think they have a
I
bad
love,
race.
see, what I love that you're doing there is like you're giving them that corrective experience from their internal self-criticism. So like again, swimmers are wired to be very hard on themselves, and you're offering this like other voice, this other reframe to them. And I think at that age, like basically what they're going to do is internalize your language. And so they'll think like, oh, Coach Abby said that wasn't that bad. Okay. Like, and then the next time they race that race, they'll be like, oh, Coach Abby would say da 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 da. And then eventually that becomes their own internal voice, which is the really cool part about coaching in youth sports. I can't tell you how many clients I have now where I'll be like talking to them and they're like in their 20s, right? They're professional athletes in their 20s, and we'll be talking and they'll like say some of their thoughts, and I'll say like whose voice is that? and they'll say like, honestly, like that's probably my middle school football coach, or that's probably my coach from high school, or and they've internalized that coach's voice and not even realized it. And so it goes back to what we were saying, like coaches just have such a powerful stance and a powerful role in athletes' lives, and what you're doing there with your kids is beautiful. And I think, I mean, you might have a better perspective, but like youth athletes should have fun. Like the focus of youth sports should be, let's have fun, let's make connections, let's learn some cool life lessons in like a really subtle experiential way. And then when we get to, 13 and above, maybe that's when we start really trying to like have more of like an intentional preparation. But I think that, when you take things so seriously as a youth athlete, that's what leads to like a risk of burnout later on in their career. And so, yeah, I think just keeping them positive, giving them good thoughts, and make like having it be fun is the most important.
Yeah, I think, but like the impact you have on the kids is so important to remember in the day to day because like coming out of a hard practice, it's just like you feel so big. And I'm like, I did like this didn't go well at all. This was a horrible, like I'm not doing it right. And it's like important to remember that like no, you are still impacting the kids, like even if it was a bad practice, like what you say and do in response to the actions is like so important. So I'll remember that for
They
forever.
look at you guys. Yeah, they look at you guys so much, and coaches model so much. And so, again, if you had a practice that you feel like didn't go well, how you respond to that, they see that. And you'll see, this is why you see like when coaches, I'm not saying this about you, but like when coaches respond to mistakes and, throw a kickboard, or have this very reactive stance, usually those swimmers are more reactive, right? Like we look at those authority figures, and modeling is a thing. And so, yeah, like even if you're not interacting with them, they're watching, and
Yeah.
they all look up to you guys. So it's just, yeah, it's a really valuable role.